Welcome to the Project Endure podcast, the place where we talk about life, endurance, persistence, perspective, and so much more. I'm Joe Rinaldi, and I'll be your host. Let's jump in. Before we get started, let me thank you for being here. The stories on this podcast are meant to let you know that you're not alone in what you're going through and that we can all find strength in struggle with the right perspective. If you've been enjoying the podcast, let me ask that you leave a review on your platform of choice to help us grow so that we can continue to make the world a better place, one conversation at a time. Now, let's get to the episode. Welcome back to the Project Endure podcast, episode 198. We have myself, Joe Rinaldi, and also in the great city of Philadelphia, we have a very, very, very special guest, Sim Williams. Sim, how are you?
Hey, man, I appreciate the introduction. You make me sound like I'm doing something here. I like it.
You are doing something. And before we talk about you, I just want to share a little bit about how we know each other. And I don't know if we've ever talked about this, but, you know, we're both in the fitness space here in Philadelphia. And I feel like for a while, there were a few mornings where we'd train clients in the same space. And I'd just see you from afar and we never really interacted. And then it wasn't really until the 24 hours of stairs that happened last year that we got to know each other much better. And ever since then, I feel like we see each other more and more now, and it's really cool.
Yes. And I feel like that's exactly how it came through.
Yeah. So to start off, Sim, I ask everybody this question, but there are people listening who might not know who you are. If you had to introduce yourself and share a little bit about you, how would you do that?
Oh, so 3 things right now, right? So I would say, obviously, my name is Sim Williams. I'm from Philadelphia, born and raised here. I would say that, first off, I'm a husband. I'll drive that quality well, right? I love being a husband. And I never thought I would love that, right? But love being a husband. I'm a new father. So I'm learning with that. We can talk more about that for the fathers out there. Maybe I can get some help with that as well. And third is fitness, man. Fitness and sports. I love it. This is what I've always done pretty much my entire life. Not pretty much, all my entire life. And this is the road that I knew that I wanted to take. And I'll continue to go down it as I learn, meet people like yourself, get to do cool things like I'm doing right now. And I feel like the route that I've taken has led me right to where I am right now to be able to speak to you, because apparently I'm doing something right. If you feel like you have the interest to want to bring me onto your show. You got 100 and how many episodes?
198 guests, and then we've got some bonus. Yeah. So I'll share this. So one of the moments that clicked in my mind where I thought I'd love to pick his brain was when we were on the stairs, you, me, and Erica. Erica is actually 2 episodes behind. She did episode 196 of this podcast. Great conversation. And we were on the stairs, I think maybe 8 or 10 hours into this thing, right? 24 hours of stairs. We're 8 or 10 hours in. It was hot. My stomach was a bit weird. I was trying to figure out what to eat. And I just made the comment to you. I said, you know, what have you eaten so far? And you just very casually said something to the effect of, I haven't really eaten yet. And I thought to myself, this guy is keeping pace with me on these stairs, and he hasn't eaten much or anything in 8 to 10 hours. Like, that is wild. So I thought he's got something going on between his ears that has to keep him going. So yeah, I wanted to maybe start by just hearing about the steps for you and how that experience was over the 24 hours.
Hey, that was an amazing experience, right? So I have to give kudos to my wife for that, because she was doing some work with Legacy of Hope, and she introduced me to it, right? They were asking about, you know, they were just speaking in casual, I believe, just talking about it and talking about how they were looking for athletes and stuff like that. She said, I knew a perfect person. And Normally I'm not really into things a lot. Like I like to be chill and casually grow into some things, but she was like, this would be a great opportunity. And when I heard about the reason of doing the stairs and about the cancer and everything, I had to hop on to it. You know what I mean? And that was my biggest motivator. And we all had something that was driving us during that time. And for me, with the stairs, it initially started off as my grandmother passed from colon cancer a few years back. And she was very into fitness as well. And to think that if it can take somebody like that, you know what I mean? Like she was apparently the first person ever in my family really that I see consistently with their fitness. I'm talking about, I don't know if you remember Tabo, you know what I mean? Tabo in the morning, running to the track. She was the first person I know to go to track early in the morning. She would be done at the track cooking breakfast by the time I wake up. I'm like, damn, you did all of this. You know what I mean? So it was super inspiring seeing that. And of course, I lost my grandma, like I said, to colon cancer. So seeing how it breaks down somebody that was very strong and having to see that. Like I actually watched my grandmother pass away, watch her take her last breath right there by her side. You know what I mean? And as crazy as it may sound, is I think she would rather have went out that way, surrounded around family and things like that. At the time, you don't think about it like that, but you're right there. You're right there. There's plenty different ways that's out there to take us out there. But she was right there, surrounded by loved ones. Got to tell I love her again, and all of these different type of things. You know what I mean? This is the first time I can really talk about it, besides with my wife, without really getting choked up. But I think more so talking about it a little bit more helps out
Yeah.
and going through things like that. So, like you mentioned, what's in your head? What's in your head as you're going up and down those things, right? Then I had a second driver. I mentioned my dog Maverick. Maverick is what I had a golden retriever, my wife and I. He was 6 years old, the most amazing dog. We all say that about our dogs, but he was a amazing, amazing, amazing dog, right? He was our first kid, our first son, right? And I believe maybe a month before the stairs, he got diagnosed with cancer, right? And when I say it took, like it ran through him, you know, within like 2 weeks, no, I want to say 10 days of the diagnosis, that's when he passed. And again, he passed right in front of us, right there at home, as we were trying to go into our fight to, I guess, yeah, that one's tough. That one get me every time. That one get me every time. So getting into trying to fight that cancer with him, and he was such a strong dog, so stoic, right? Like there's been plenty of times I accidentally like bump into him, I kick him. He don't make noises or anything. But the night before, I knew that my wife and I knew he was going to pass. He was whining, never whined before. So that was, man. And for days afterwards, after his passing, we can still hear the whining. You know what I mean? It was like PTSD almost, and that right there was the ultimate driver for those stairs. So to wrap back around to the stairs, those were my two main drivers. And I feel as if being there, feeling what you're feeling, like with your brand is enduring that, right? Enduring that, being capable and able to go through that, food, whatever, it doesn't matter, right? I watched my dog try to walk and couldn't walk anymore. Knowing 6 years having him, I had to have a gentle leader and to walk him every day because he was so crazy. Then going all the way down to me having to pick him up to take him outside and pick him up and take him back inside within 10 days was like, it wrecked us. You know what I mean? So that gave us a lot of mental fuel, a lot of fire right there. And lastly, with the stairs is to help others around in the city. Can't forget that. That was the whole purpose right there. A lot of families in our cities that's going through the same exact thing that I have went through, that you have went through, that the other athletes has gone through too. And we have that opportunity to do what we already do every day and what we love to do to help support others. So why not? Why not?
I appreciate you going into all that, going so deep. And, the big question that I usually start off with, which I didn't even get a chance to ask, which is great because I think you might have just answered it, is what's the hardest thing you've ever had to handle that you didn't get to choose for yourself? And I think loss is a very common answer in some regard to that, right?
Yeah.
We don't get to choose when other people, animals, things are taken out of our lives. And I want to talk about your grandma because I have some
Mhm.
thoughts, I have some questions, but let's talk just a little bit more about Maverick if you're cool with that.
Yeah. Of
Because yeah,
course.
as a dog owner, I can't imagine. I cannot imagine what that's like. And I
Yeah.
remember you telling me that on the stairs. And I just
Yeah.
felt
Yeah.
so sad because that's got to be one of the hardest things I can imagine. And I would be curious to hear how you navigated that. Like what did it look like to be strong through that? What did it look like to get through that, to put one foot in front of the other and endure that?
So again, bringing it back to my wife. My wife is the huge, huge support system, right? So having that support and being open to talk to someone. I normally bottle up a lot of things. We all do, normally with men, I think, but more so for I guess that's my character. I would assume that I've heard before that I don't talk much about things. I don't talk much at all, I guess. But going through it with someone, you don't want someone to go through those type of things, obviously, but having someone beside you to support you and to support them, right? And also my son as well. Even though he was only one, Maverick passed the day before his second birthday. So August 21st, Maverick passed around 6 p.m., or excuse me, around 5 p.m. And the next day, August 22nd, was my son's second birthday. So that right there, having to get up, even though he's only two, and but still having to get up and move on and celebrate with my son. And that's the hardest thing to do, right? Because you always feel like you're moving on without that
Mm,
person or that thing or that animal, right? And prior to my son, Maverick was our son, right? If you're a dog person or an animal person, you know this feeling. You know this feeling. And we had Maverick for 6 years. My wife is the one that got her. She got him right before I went on my deployment with the Army. So I deployed and I met him. A funny story, really quick. I met him maybe about 2 or 3 days before my deployment. This is back in, what is this? 2019. So 2019, met Maverick. He was only 8 weeks old. Little bitty thing, looked like a little chicken nugget. And because Maverick was a dark coat golden. They're called field golden retrievers. So he was a dark coat, very beautiful, but very small when I met him. And that was the last time I seen him before my deployment. Came back home after about 9 to 10 months. And he was big. And he didn't like me at all. He was growling at me, all of this stuff, you know what I mean? Took us 2 days. 2 days he wouldn't leave me
oh,
alone. And after 2 days, up into his last breath, we was right there side by side with
mm,
everything, man. And we went through a lot with the animal as well, with Maverick as well, right? Our first, married together, he was there, our first apartment, right? Our first car, and then obviously our first kid. He went through all these different type of milestones with us. So every step of the way, you know what I mean? Even in the points where it's like very, very challenging
mm,
points and within transitions of our life, right? He was right there, right there.
mm,
So just that was the most challenging part getting through that, but have my wife on my side and also trying to support her too. So like trying to be strong for my family or not trying to be, being, right? You have to. Don't really have a choice. Don't have a choice because they're feeling the same exact thing you feel it. And when my son, the main thing I wanted too, I was like, man, I don't want him to forget
mm.
Maverick. I don't want him to forget him. And randomly, he says his name. That's his name. And he's just starting to talk. He's been talking. Don't get me wrong, he talks a lot. But a lot of baby talk. But one thing he do, my wife is going to watch this thing, it's funny, but he'll randomly go roof roof. Roof, roof. You know, they say roof, roof. Love you, Mav, roof, roof. Randomly. And you talking about trying not to break down?
Oh man.
We watching Toy Stories or something like that, and he randomly says that. You like looking over at him like, what?
Oh man.
Yeah.
Well,
Uh,
l-
man.
let me say this. I think it's so beautiful the way that you talk about how Maverick was with you guys through all of those milestones. And it's so clear that he'll always be part of your life. He'll always live in your heart. And there's this quote that I love. It's from Edward Hoagland. And he said, in order to really enjoy a dog, one doesn't merely try to train him to be semi-human. The point of it is to open oneself up to the possibility of becoming partly a dog. And I feel like dogs change us, right? Like dogs make us more like them, right? A little bit more carefree, a little bit more loving, a little bit more trusting. And that way that you and Maverick shaped each other, like that'll last with you forever.
Yes. And I appreciate you asking these questions and allowing me to talk about it, you know, because again, I don't talk about it to many people but my wife. But now being able to open up and talk about it, know somebody understands it, you know, because that's the hardest part too, is talking to someone and not sure if they actually listening or
Yeah.
understanding. So you close it off to yourself. But you openly asking me because you
Yeah.
understand, you know, that helps me push forward just a little bit more.
Well,
You know, so I appreciate.
of course. And I appreciate you opening up about it. And there are going to be people listening to this who, whether they've gone through it, they're going through it, they will go through it, losing something that they love. This is going to help them. And just one more point before we then talk a little bit about your grandma. There are these stories you see in the news of people lifting cars off of other people, right? There's an accident, and all of a sudden, these people have what seem to be superhuman strength. And it's in that moment of like, I need to show up for another person where we can all tap into something that's deep down inside of us. It gives us that extra ounce of strength, perseverance, endurance, because we need to do it for someone else that we care about. And I just want to share that because we all have that inside of us. And I think whether or not we've experienced it yet, it doesn't mean that it's not in there. And I
Yeah,
think something that's so cool is to be able to tap into that on demand at will, to go the extra mile, to do the extra thing, to push a little bit more. And it just stuck out to me that, you said part of what got you through was needing to be strong for your wife and son.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. Yep. Hit it on the
So
head.
going back to your grandma, first of all, she sounds like an amazing woman.
Yeah.
And I was just having a conversation with somebody earlier today about, when I'm 90, let's say, I hope I make it to 90, but we'll see. So let's just say I'm old and I look back at my life and, I can't do the things that I used to do. My body has broken
Mhm.
down a little bit. I'm tired. I'm fatigued. I'm toward the end. I know that all I'm going to care about is, the memories I made and the people that I loved. And I couldn't think of a better way to go than to be surrounded by the people that I love. And like the part I'm getting at here is fitness in a lot of ways can be selfish at times, right? You have to take time to train, to be disciplined and dedicated. And taken to an extreme, fitness can sometimes get in the way of building deep relationships, being there for other people, cultivating that circle. So the fact that your grandma was able to do all of that, right? She was able to get to the track early in the morning, cook breakfast, be there for you, have people that loved her and that she loved. That's very impressive. Oh, tell me
Yes,
more
yes.
about how you're like your grandma. I'd be curious to hear that.
So my my grandmother is kind of odd, right? So it is odd in the sense of I don't want the memories to fade away because it's starting to get longer. I'm getting a little bit older. And the reason I say this is because my grandmother, right, she was a religious person, very religious. And she was Israelite,
Mhm.
right? So Israelite. And Israelites don't take pictures or
Hmm.
videos. So they don't, I'm not sure if the exact, if someone out there knows, they probably understand a little bit more than I do. I can't remember the exact reason why, so I'm not going to try to butcher it and explain it. but it has to do something with the religion,
Mm.
right? And the reason why I bring that up is my grandmother had an obituary with no pictures. I've never seen pictures of my grandmother my entire life.
Mm.
So the only thing I have to remember my grandmother is my thoughts.
Huh.
I can't look back at any pictures, right? I can't look back at any videos. All I have is the memories. And I'm trying to hold them close and near and dear to me as I get older, because you start to forget some things.
Mm.
So I'm trying to remember the, how she looked, as funny as that sound, right? How she looked. I don't want to think about how she looked when I seen her, you know, passing,
Mm.
right? How did she look when she was strong doing the tabo, right? How did she feel? Her smile, her energy, or all of those things, right? Those memories you try to hold on to. So I like to think that some of my fitness, or maybe just seeing that from a young age, comes from her, right? She's the first person I knew that had a bench in her basement or in the treadmill. Nobody else I knew had that, right? So now, everybody has that pretty
Yeah.
much. When I go to my grandmother's basement, she had a sewing table next to the bench. Who does that? So you sewing in between reps or something like that, the bench with the lat pull down pulley. She had the treadmill, all of that. You know what I mean? So taking care of her health and things like that. And I like to think that maybe it started there. I used to enjoy going and seeing her do the tabo, and I would jump in with the tabo and things like that. But it's also a weird story. Again, like I mentioned before, my grandmother being religious, when I used to go over her house, she would celebrate something called the Sabbath. So being a kid, the Sabbath is on Friday evening, Friday through Sunday. There's no TV and entertainment, things like that. So as a kid, 6, 7, 8 years old, Friday night, you got wrestling is on, you got all the cartoons. So if I was to go to my grandmother's house, I'm like, oh man, I can't
Mm.
watch anything. I can't do nothing over there. You know what I mean? My brother and my sister is out playing somewhere. I'm at my grandmother's house and I can't do nothing.
Mm.
Right. So, or I'm going to church with her Saturday. Saturday, church will last until sunset.
Mm.
They even had a break in between. Like, wow, like this is long. As a kid, you're like, man, what is going on? And then Sunday morning will be totally different. Totally different. I wake up and she's cooking for me. I'm like, oh, grandma, it's 7 a.m. She's like, oh, I've been to the track already. I did all of that. Like, damn, so you had all of that in between, right? You did all of these things. And then not only that, she also worked at Tasty Cake when it was in North
Wow.
Philly. She worked at Tasty Cake, I believe, like 20 years, if I'm not mistaken. Yep. So not too far off of where Tasty Cake was at is where my grandmother lived. Right? So again, to bring back around, I like to think that some of my fitness and my consistency started with
Mm.
that, because this was an everyday, or excuse me, an every weekend thing. Or anytime I would see her, she was always held herself to that
Mm.
standard, right? I never seen her weak until
Mm.
that, you know. So I like to think about those things, and I try to hold on to them as I get older, because I don't want those memories to fade. So I love talking about her. So, talking about her is another way for her living, continuing, right?
You
So,
read my mind. I was going to share a quote from Ernest Hemingway. He said, "Every man or woman has two deaths: when he is buried in the ground and the last time someone says his name. In some
go.
ways we can be immortal." And right, as long as you continue talking about her, she lives on, and that is
There you
that is
go.
so cool. It's also a really interesting reminder, I would imagine, for you that your son, someday your grandchildren, if you have them, they will think back to, man, dad, granddad, like he used to carry himself like so well. Like he was larger than life. He was consistent. He was disciplined. He was loving, all these things, right? The impact that you're going to have on generations to come is going to be similar in a lot of ways to the impact your grandma's had on you.
Hey, that's all we're looking for, right?
Mm-hmm.
To have some. Once you understand that, then it gets a little bit smoother. Things get a little bit smoother. Again, I wrap back around to you inviting me onto this. I always have a sense of things like, why me, right? I guess what is, I forget the term that it's called, right? It's some type of term where you sort of second guess
Imposter
yourself.
syndrome?
Imposter syndrome, there it is, right? I think I don't know if you would, I'm not going to self-diagnose myself, but from what I read, I'm like, damn, that kind of sounds like myself. Like even you invite me on this, I'm like, man, like he wants me. I don't know what I'm going to talk about. I don't feel like I have, you know, I'm sure you had some people on here, you know. So I'm like, oh man, I don't know what I'm going to talk about. Same thing with the stairs. You know, like damn, you know, I don't have. There's some people out there that they can probably grab. Why they want to grab me? But when I have an impact on somebody, whether it's one person or two or 10 or however many, then it's like, okay, this is the reason why.
Mm-hmm.
They're choosing me for me. Even if it is the same exact thing as the person on my right and left, I have mine, right? I have my journey, I have my experience, and I get to tell my part of the story. It can be the same story, mine's being be a little bit different. So I try to remind myself that. Try to remind myself that all week leading up to this right here. You know what I mean? Like, hey, he's talking to me for me. You know what I'm saying? So, you know, I try my best to do that. Right?
That's spot on. And I'll bring this into the world of fitness before I ask the next big question, because I get this quite a bit from people who I interact with who want to be a coach, a trainer. They want to be in the world of fitness. And one of the hesitations I hear quite a bit is, oh, it's just so saturated, right? Like there's so many coaches, there's so many trainers. And my response to that is often, well, first of all, how many of those people are still going to be doing that thing in 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, right? It might feel saturated now, but the longevity is what matters. And if you care about this thing and you stick with it, then it doesn't matter if it's saturated now. And also, there are probably tens of thousands of trainers in the greater Philadelphia area. Why would someone choose me, or why would someone choose you? It's because of us. It's because there are some people that are going to click really well with you. There are some people that are going to
Exactly.
click really well with me. And it has probably very little to do with skill level, knowledge base, ability. Yeah, sure, those things have to be there, but it's Sim that someone's coming for. It's Joe that someone's coming
Yeah.
for, you know?
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly.
So,
I agree with
yeah.
that. Agree
So,
with
all
that.
right, let me shift here for a sec. We talked about two very hard things that you didn't get to choose. What's the hardest thing you've ever done on purpose? And why did you do that thing?
I would say one of the hardest things I've done on purpose, as silly as it sounds, it wasn't anything to do with fitness or endurance or anything like that. It was actually I have
Yeah.
two, if that's
Yes.
okay. Two. The first one is stopping boxing, right? Boxing was my biggest thing. I don't really talk about it as much as I could have or I used to if my family and friends know me from when I was younger. My goal was to go to the Olympics. I loved boxing, right? That was goal A, nothing else, right? I wasn't thinking about college, wasn't thinking about what my career or other jobs was going to be. It was boxing or it's nothing, right? And that's growing up. And that's, pre YouTube, right? It's pre YouTube. If you've been training for a long time and you've been doing this prior to YouTube, you wasn't seeing a lot of people training and working out. You thought that you was the ish, yo. I'm telling you, because like you're not seeing it. Nobody else is doing it. You know what I mean? So nobody else is doing these things, all that stuff like that, right? It's like until YouTube coming, like, damn, there's a lot of people doing
Yep.
this, a lot better than me. But boxing, because that was my love. That was my first love. And one of the reasons I gave it up, or I stopped competing. So stop doing it competitively. I was still training and things like that every now and then, but I stopped doing it competitively because it was a little bit over consuming for myself. And it took a while for me to come back to that because that was my first love. That was the thing that I thought I was going to do for my life, right? Or that's what was going to get me out of the position I was in at that time. Right? That was my ticket, you know? So not school, not this, that, boxing. And I was good at it. So I loved it. And that's one of the things that kept me into fitness as well. I always loved to train, but I love boxing. Right. And quick story, I trained myself because I moved to Alabama. I don't know. I don't think I've ever told you this, but I went to high school in Alabama, middle school and high school in Alabama, even though I'm born and raised here in Philly. My mom is from Alabama, but she was raised here. So all of us was born here. She decided to move back to Alabama, I believe when I was like 10 years old. So between going to school in Alabama and spring breaks, winter breaks, Christmas breaks, all those things like that, I would come back home. But being in Alabama, I had access to a bunch of different sports. I love track and field, football, baseball, basketball, and wrestling. Never played any of them because I was stubborn and wanted to box. So when I was down there, it wasn't a lot of boxing gyms like it is in Philly. That's a football state. You know what I mean? So if you're not playing football or something like that, you're not really doing anything. So I was always boxing and trained myself from DVDs, Teddy Atlas DVDs with Mike Tyson and things like that, right? All of those things, boxing gloves from Dick's Sporting Goods. When I started working at the Boys and Girls Club, get my own checks and stuff, I was able to buy these things to train myself, right? Fast forward to 18, graduate high school, moved back to Philly the second day after high school graduation. I was back home. I got a job working at PetSmart. So as an overnight stalker, early morning stalker, I would go to the gym after work. So 4 a.m. to 11 a.m. morning stalking, right to the boxing gym. It used to be in Spring Garden called Joe Hand on Third and Spring Garden? That's why I started boxing at, right? I loved it. I loved every second of it. Right then and there, I knew that this was it. I was training, had my first fight, won my first fight for the 2013 Golden Gloves. Within that fight, I had like a hairline fracture or something like that in my thumb I didn't know about. Now, in tournaments and Golden Gloves, you have to compete weekly in order to continue to go up into the tournament until you can fight for the actual championship. I had to be pulled because I couldn't even close my fist. Devastating. Devastating right there. I felt like I had nothing else. I wasn't thinking about school, college, nothing like that. You know, now I'm 19, going on 20, have no idea where my life was going to go. So I knew I could even let it heal, try to get back into it, or you right then and there. You know, you living with a family member or sleeping on the couch or something like that. It's like, hey, no, I got to get into it. You know what I mean? I have to start making decisions. So I had to stop that. You know, I had to stop them because I had to make that decision to start working or to supply for myself, right? So that's when I joined the army. I joined the army. That's how that transitioned into it. You know what I mean? So that was one of the hardest things I had to choose to do. The second hardest thing I had to choose to do, I would say, is doing that deployment, being away from my wife. It sounds silly, but my wife is my best friend. My best friend. We just celebrated 17 years last week. We've been together since we were 16 years old. So yes, yeah, she is my best friend. She can do everything with me. All of those instances I tell you about, my grandmother, all of these things. I knew my wife since I was 6 years old. So we grew up together, separated when I moved to Alabama, came back home, and we connected, right? Got right back on it. So leaving her, that was my first time being away from it. Also my first time being away from home. But it was my first time being away from her for that long and going out and have to do whatever it was with the army and things like that. You know, you're prepared for that. But being prepared to leave Maverick as well, Maverick and my wife, not knowing where she's at, I kind of just left. We also got married and eloped a day before I left.
Whoa.
So that's what made it challenging for you guys listening. Like, oh, what is life? No, man, listen, that's my best friend. I don't get out much, guys. I don't get out much. But shout out to Fee. Shout out to Fee, my wife, you know what I mean, holding it down with me for all these years, putting up with me and things like that. But she's also the reason I do a lot of things. She's also behind me all the time, telling me, hey, you should do this. She told me you should do this right here. Go talk to Joe. She's the one who got me into the endorphins. I came back, hey, there's a running group out there called endorphins. I don't know what if somebody tried to talk to me? You know what I mean? Like, hey, get out there and do it. All these things, and now I'm a pacer for endorphins. You know what I mean? And now I do marathons and this and that. So she's a big driving force behind a lot of the things I do. So leaving her and not having her to be near me and not sure what she's going to be doing, more so like how she's going to be able to handle herself or supply for herself while us being together, right? And again, we had just got married. So I married my wife and then left her.
Yeah.
So right then and there, you know what I mean? So
That
yeah,
timeline is crazy.
crazy. Yes, yes, it all happened rapidly.
So let's start with what you just said, and then we'll work back to the boxing. But
Yeah,
so I love the way you talk about your wife. That is so cool. That is, I mean, I just like I'm a sap. I'm a hopeless romantic. Like that's how
yeah,
I
yeah,
would
yeah.
describe my wife, my best friend. And I remember when I was engaged, I asked a lot of questions to a lot of people, people who were older than me, married for long periods of time. What's your best advice for someone who's just getting married? And I got a lot of different answers, but I still love that question. And so if I had to ask you, if somebody out there is maybe they're thinking of getting engaged, or they're engaged, or they just got married, or they've been married for 5 years, like my wife and I, what's the best piece of marriage advice that you feel like would be applicable to everyone out there?
Yeah, 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 definitely. I would say continue learning, right? Because again, with 17 years, the point of getting married is to be together for the rest of your life. You think you're going to have it put together at 5 or so, but you don't, right? You don't. You don't. So understand that because as you both continue to grow, you learn more about yourselves
Mm,
individually. And then you have to relearn those things that you just learned about yourself with your
mm,
partner as you continue to go through all these different type of things that hitting you from the left and right on the outside of your partnership as well. So you have to continue to learn each other and understand that. You know what I mean? Listening. I'll try my best to listen to her because she's going to tell me what I need to hear. Because she listen, we want, as the husband, you want your wife to listen to you, right? As a supporter and things like that. You want her to listen to you got to do the same thing.
mm.
Gotta do the same thing. She telling you right then and there what it is she wants, right? But you gotta hear it. You gotta hear it and take heed. So I won't say I'm the best at it. Definitely not. But I try my best to work at
Mm.
it. You gotta be willing to work at these things, and it's gonna be a journey. It's gonna be a journey. And don't stop dating your wife, okay? Don't stop dating. Okay? Just because you wrapped up don't mean you stop dating. All right. Continue with that. And again, I'm not the best with that, but I'm trying. You gotta continue to try with it. Don't get too comfortable with it. Don't get too comfortable. I would say
That's
that.
all great. And one of the things that I admire the most about marriages that last a lifetime, which again is the goal, right? Um,
Yeah, yeah.
is like the fact that these two individual people, I'm going to use my hands to demonstrate this to you, but people listening will only hear my voice. So you kind of like have these paths that you kind of imagine they're parallel. You guys are both growing in the same direction, but as individuals, you're also growing in different ways. And how do you not grow apart as you grow as individuals, but grow as individuals and grow together? I think is such
Exactly.
a one, a unique challenge, but also a meaningful one. And, I think back even 10 years ago, when I'm 31 now, when I was 21, I was a very different person. So, right,
Exactly.
to think
Exactly.
in 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, you and your wife, me and my wife, we're going to be very different people, but the goal is to grow together, not grow apart.
Exactly. Exactly. And to use a reference very similar to what you was just talking about, I like to explain that too. It's like a fence for a gardener with a vine, right? And the vine grows through that fence because you're trying to control it, but it
Mm,
intertwines. It's the same exact way. You have to, it's very similar to with the hands and for everyone that's listening, right? You're intertwining together as you grow. Instead of going their separate ways, you're intertwining and growing together as you continue to learn more about each other throughout the years. That's what's going to help with the long run of it, right? And as an example, with the marathons and the running and things like that, I've always ran because I love fitness. I love being and doing things and challenging myself, right? There's nothing else to it but love, right? I got into endorphins, started running more because I said, oh man, one thing I haven't done before is a marathon. until I realized how popular marathons are now. But I got into the marathon stuff and things like that. That's what I learned about myself. The furthest I had ever run prior to last year or to this year, last year prior, no, it's 2026 or 2024, the furthest I ever run was 10 miles, which is still far. Don't get me wrong, 10 miles. But now the furthest I've ever done is the 72 on the stairs with you. And my wife was along that entire journey because we had just had a kid. So I learned, hey, I like endurance running. When our kid was 5, 6 months. So as I learned that about myself, and I'm like, okay, I need to get up 3 to 4 a.m. in the morning to go do my long runs. Who's going to be there for the baby, right? My wife. So she's learning that with me. So instead of her combating that, she's seeing that, and she know once I latch on to something, I'll latch on to it, right? So she see, oh yeah, he got his eyes on it now. Well, let's make these adjustments. So I try to do everything I need to make sure that she's comfortable because she's doing everything she can to make sure I'm comfortable to be able to do these things that I'm doing now. All of the trail running, the marathons, the stairs, the this and that. These are long hours away from not only her, but also away from our baby as well. So she got to be super mom and super wife 24/7, right? So those are things I learned. I learned that I love endurance running now. I'm like, damn, I didn't know all that. So she's seeing that. Oh, I thought you just liked the gym. Now she just got used to the gym. Now she got to get used to me leaving early in the morning or going Saturday mornings away or Thursday evenings with endorphins or this, or now we traveling to Jersey to run a marathon or having all of these things like that. You know what I mean? And she does it very well. And I learn from that so I can make sure I can do it when it comes around. I can be there the same exact way that she's there for me every step of the way.
That's so beautiful, Sam. And it's the reason, and I'm very excited to have you at the Project Endure event this year in April. But it's the reason every year I bring my wife up, and she really dislikes being the center of attention, but I feel the need to bring her up in front of everybody and thank her, because without her support, her love, her encouragement, I wouldn't be able to do the things that I do, and vice versa. And it's just really beautiful when partnerships can work like that. Now, to bring it back to boxing, I've got two main thoughts. One is episode 120 of this podcast. I had my friend Jack Crow on. He's a boxer, and he shared this phrase: "You have to train violence to promote peace." Maybe he didn't say, yeah, maybe he didn't say you have to, but he said train violence to promote peace. And I asked him more about what he meant by that, and he talked about the Japanese proverb of it's better to be a warrior in a garden than a gardener in a war. And you strike me as a warrior in a garden because one, you're strong, right? You can see that when you walk around. You're a strong guy, but the way you carry yourself is this quiet confidence, right? You're not a man of many words. At least it appears that way. And you're soft, you're gentle. I can see the way that you interact with people. But if needed, I would imagine you could probably hold your own and take care of things. And tell me more about that side of you and how you see all that.
Oh yeah, most definitely, most definitely. I was very confrontational growing up, not on purpose, right? Not on purpose, but I guess you would say it's the 90s, you know what I mean? It was rough. It was the 90s in North Philly. So growing up then and being a bunch of fights, friends, brothers, friends, and this and that, things like that, you grow up a certain way, right? So I had to learn how to handle my own so that when the times come, I can be able to handle my own and own the others that couldn't do it for themselves too. You know what I mean? But as I grew older, I realized I didn't want to be in that type of space. So I would rather be able to build myself up for the capability just in case, but never be in the forefront of it or a starter of it, right? So being able to protect myself and again, others, my family or someone else who can't do it for themselves, you know? And I, I feel like, I won't say as a man, I would just say in general, I feel like everyone should have that,
Mhm.
right? As it's not all beautiful out there. As much as we want it to be, it's not. You know, it's a challenge out there, and you should be ready for certain things.
Mhm.
Right? You don't have to be crazy and go to the army or Marine Corps or something like that, but you also want to prepare yourself for things. It's the same thing like we prepare ourselves, our bodies all the
Mhm.
time, right? And you want to prepare your mind the same exact way. Right? They go hand in hand because your body is only going to go as far as your mind will. At that same time, you got to be able to be ready for these certain things. You know what I mean? But again, not just stepping in there and being there just because you have this capable, because I'm so-called big or strong and things like that. No, you know. So, but again, having the ability to. One of my favorite fighters all time, Mike Tyson. You see how he is now and how he talks, right? Things like that. Even at 60 something, coming in, you know what I mean? You still wouldn't really want to cross
Yeah.
Mike. Still wouldn't want to cross Mike. And you know he's not going to go out of his way to cross you too. So I'm not going to go out of my way. Very, very long patience, right? And it would have to go really left for me to have to go left with
Mm.
you. So, and I would rather not to, you know. So
I
yeah,
love that. And it's funny you mentioned Mike Tyson because I was about to share a quote from Mike Tyson, which is my second point on boxing. He said, "Man is not meant to be humble. He is meant to be humbled." And I think they're the hard things in our life, right? Whether we choose them or they choose us, they humble us. And I'd be curious to hear how you were humbled when you had to stop boxing and what that season of maybe coming down a notch, feeling a bit low about that, how that maybe in the long run ended up being a good thing for your development in who you are.
I love it. Love it. It has because the reason I say that stopping boxing, even though it's it was a challenge. It was a challenge, right? It's very, very, very much a challenge because that was my thing. And I don't know how to express more than just telling you.
Mm.
I had no idea of where my life was going to go besides doing that, right? And it's weird to come to the fact I barely even watch it now because I think about it. Like if I see him, like, oh man, like, oh, that could have been me. And I never want to go that route. Never want to go with that. It could have been me type thing, right? And that's one of the humbling things right there is knowing that I guess is not knowing, not knowing where it could have led, but I know where not doing it has led to now. So thinking about it that route, I chose the right way. I chose the right way because it led me to all of these different things, right? I knew that how much it consumed me more
Mm.
so. I'm more of a very creature of nature, I guess that's what you would call it, right? The same things over again. I can do. I can change some things up, but I knew, hey, the sacrifices that people say that they need to take in things to get ahead, those weren't sacrifices
Mm.
to me. Those were things that I would do day all the time. Like Joe, I don't smoke, I don't drink. I've never been to an actual bar that's not Chili's. Okay. And you know what I mean? Listen, I stopped drinking soda at 16 years old because I knew that that was a crutch. It sounds silly as a 16-year-old with some Mountain Dew, you running through them joints, you know what I mean? But 16 years old, I'm like, all right, it starts now. And I remember, I'm not sure you remember the show on HBO
Oh yeah.
24/7, Boxing. I love that show. I love that show. And one of the things that always correlated with me is when they would talk about the sacrifices, right? And when they would say, hey, I wouldn't go to the parties, or hey, I wouldn't go out with my friends, or this and that. And I'm like, yo, that's me right now. That's me right now. That's not a sacrifice. I would do that time and time
Mm.
again in order to be able to compete and to go to the Olympics, just a chance to, not alone competing for a medal or something like that, just a chance. Those are not sacrifices. those are choices right there that I'm willing to make that you sound like you having a hard problem
Mm.
doing, you know? So, but thinking about that, I just took all of that energy and things that I had, that same pride that I had, and just stuffed it somewhere else, right? And this is where it built me up to where I am now. So I had to be humbled by that position and by that choice to be able to make different type of choices to where I am right now.
Yeah, that's so beautiful. It's powerful. It's relatable. Also, just quick side note, I did drink in high school, but I haven't had a drink since I was 18. I don't smoke. I gave up soda when I was 10. You and I, yeah, you and I are more similar than I realized. But I think life gives us a lot of times not what we want, but what we need. And that perspective for anyone out there listening who's going through a hard time, something that they didn't want to happen, maybe they've gone down a path they didn't expect in their mind, or they wanted to be somewhere else, right? You have to trust it. Like, you're getting what you need. You might not have gotten what you want, but you're getting what you need.
That's it, yo. That's it. Because had I continued, right? Who knows? Even if it would have been a success, right? I can't think
Mhm.
about it. I can't think about it because I can think about what I'm doing right now to be successful in the path that I'm on now, right? And had I not, I would have never joined the army, right? Because I would have been so consumed about training, being there all the time, everything, like not talking to family, not doing all of these different type of things that I thought that you had to do in order to, like you mentioned before, like it is a little bit selfish, right? Or it can be a lot of it selfish. So it's like not doing all of these different type of things, family gatherings or cookouts or whatever it may be. I'm not there because hey, Mike Tyson said he wouldn't go to these things because he trained it. I ain't Mike Tyson, but if I want to be in that route, I need to go. I'm not going to be going it. So all of those different type of things. But had I not chose that path, I went to join the army and met the amazing people that I have become friends with now. I wouldn't have been into a lot of different things that I'm into right now, you know? So I went and I got Maverick because one of the reasons Maverick was here is because I was leaving. My wife always wanted a golden since we were younger, but she like, this is a perfect time because I can have a companion while you're
Mm.
away. Again, we never been away. So all of those different type of routes I am and have taken now just for simply being humbled by that, right? So I'll look at it as what you would say a blessing in disguise, you
Yep.
know?
So with all that being said, Sim, I've got two questions to wrap things up. The first one we'll keep short. The second one you can share as much as you'd like. The first one is about endurance, right? This is the Project Endure podcast. You enjoy endurance activities. When you hear the word endure or endurance, what does that mean to you?
So when I hear it, I think more so the mental capacity first before the physical, right? How much? Because there's going to be more times that you hit it on the mental before physical. You think about everybody around, not everybody's in what we're doing now, but they are out and doing a lot of different things daily, whether it's relationship, work, all these different type of life things that are handing it to them, but they go right back into it day in, day out, enduring that, right? So that ability to sustain for a long time, whether it's you trying to get through medical school, whether you're trying to pay for your mortgage or something, whether you're trying to do all of these
Mm.
things, you have to endure all of the things that's going to come with holding you to a certain point and not allowing you to get
Mm.
there, right? So that's what I think about first before I go into the physical aspect. Right? Physical aspect is easier than the mental, you know?
Yeah. I think a lot of people who are in the world of fitness and endurance understand what you're talking about, that, the body will quit before, or sorry, the mind will quit before the body, right? Like,
Mhm.
our limitation is not usually in, can our legs keep moving? Can our arms keep pumping? It's between the ears. I think that's a little bit harder to apply to everyday life because it becomes a little bit more vague and less tangible. But I agree 100% that that is the case. And, obviously there's a lot of work that can be done and that probably should be done for all of us to continue to sharpen that thing between our ears. And I guess just one quick follow up on that. What are some of the ways or one of the ways that you keep your brain sharp, that you keep the mindset in a good place?
I would say learning. I would say learning, just trying to learn. You know what I mean? Because if I don't, I'm going to continue trying to do the exact things over and over again, right? And you can only get better so much doing the same thing that you're doing now and not trying to take from others. Pick pick people's brain like yourself and people that I see around. Like just being here at the gym and seeing other trainers, let's say, doing different exercises that you've seen, never seen it before. I'm like, Then like try just learning different type of things. Again, learning how to be a better father, better husband, better son, better brother. All of those things, and not talking about learning from a book or Googling, talking about action, right? Like how can I be better for you today?
Mm-hmm.
What can I do? One thing I asked my wife, what type of husband you need for me to be today? So I can learn something, sharpen me up a little bit, so I can be a little bit better to keep going on. So just constantly learning, constantly trying to evolve.
Yeah.
So I like to think about it.
Yeah, yeah. Learning is a great answer. Learning is a superpower because it means there are things today that we can't do that we can learn how to do. We can learn how to change, learn how to grow. And what's better?
More now than ever. More now than
Yep.
ever. You got everything at your fingertips.
Yep.
So
So
definitely.
one of the things people have at their fingertips is access to podcasts and conversations like this one. And my last question is my favorite because I think we've all been in places where life has humbled us. It's a little bit harder, it's a little bit darker, and it would be so helpful to hear someone give some guidance or encouragement to us. And so there are people listening to this podcast all over the world who are going through all different sorts of things. But if you could speak right now to the one person listening to this episode on the other end who's just feeling down, stuck, lost, etc., they don't know what to do or where to go, what would you say to that person?
So I think about Maverick, right? I think about Maverick. And I bring this up because when you're down in the pit and you're feeling these things, right? You don't see another side of it, right? You don't see anything. I have family members and things that obviously, unfortunately, committed suicide and things like that because they didn't see a way out of it, right? They didn't see another end of it. They didn't see that sunrise on the other side, only that sunset, right? So I would say the main thing is just remembering or trying to remember that it's going to get better. It's very simple. It doesn't have to be anything crazy. It's going to get better. You don't feel that though while you're going through it. You're not thinking about that. And it's not going to feel like it at that point. But as the days go on, as the time go on, it gets a little bit better, a little bit better, and a little bit better. But you got to keep trying as well. You got to keep trying. You have to. And that's why I bring up Maverick because it feels like, wait, it's a new year. And this year, he's not here with us. First year since 2019 that we haven't had him go into the first Christmas without him. I'm going to be celebrating my first birthday 2 weeks without him, you know? So just continue, right? It's very simple. I know it may not be like a crazy answer or a very sexy answer, but it's the truth. And that's what I want to give you. You know?
I love it. And I think simple is good. And I have a couple thoughts that I want to share just in response to that as we close out here. But episode 193 of this podcast is with Paula Weaver Schrock, who is my wife Michaela's aunt. And unfortunately, a few weeks or a month after we recorded that episode, she passed away from cancer. And one of the things she said in response to this question was, the sun will rise again. And you just have to you just have to trust that and know that and be there for it. The sun will rise again tomorrow. And to just hear that as a theme for me over hundreds of podcast episodes, it's very comforting. And I think, to maybe make it more tangible and to tie in something you and I did together, the stairs. For people listening who are like, what is this stairs thing? Just to be clear, you, me, and a handful of other people ran up and down the art museum steps here in Philadelphia for 24 hours. And I don't know about you, but there were times where I thought, I don't know how I'm going to keep doing this, right? Like, I'm tired. I want to be done. I'm chafing. My legs hurt, whatever. And
Yeah.
then, you drink I took a sip of an energy drink and an Advil, and then 30 minutes later, you feel amazing. And the
Yeah.
ups and the downs. And it's this very vivid reminder that if you just keep going, you will experience more highs. You will also experience more lows, but none of them last forever as long as you keep your feet moving.
Yes. And it's the truth. And it's as simple as that.
Mm-hmm.
It's as simple as that, right? And ups and downs as you're going up and down, literally on the steps. And like you mentioned, like that hard part was in the middle of the night, right? Once everybody left, you don't have everybody cheering you on anymore. You don't have the support there anymore. Now what? What are you going to do now, right? As it get dark and quiet, DJ not playing the music people want to listen to, it's not hype. How do you continue on? You just, like you said, one step in front of the other, continue, and next thing you know, you start seeing that sunrise right over the city, and it's beaming down at you, beautiful as ever, and you know that you made it to the other side of it.
Yeah. And just one last thing, one of the ways that I got through the night was with you and Erica. And I think it's a great example for life that can be extrapolated of go find those people who are willing to be in the dark with you, because we don't do anything meaningful alone.
Yes, sir. That's
So
right.
with that being said, Sim, before I let you go, if people listen to this and they thought, man, I want to know more about this guy. I want to follow along with his journey. I want to connect with him. Where would be the best place for people to do any of those things?
So you can follow me on Instagram. That's pretty much the only thing that I get on. I do have a Facebook, but I don't really get on there much. But that's the only thing I get on. I try my best to be active on there. Haven't been active as much as I can, but it's sim_215.
Cool.
And I hope I was able to put some information out there that will help at least one of you. At least one.
I know you put out more than just a few words that will help many people. And I appreciate you big time, Sim. And I'm just looking forward to getting to continue to know you over time. And the next time we cross paths in person, which I'm sure will be next week.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you, man. I appreciate it again. Thank you for having me on.
If you enjoyed this episode of the Project Indoor podcast, go ahead and subscribe, leave a review on your platform of choice, and share this episode with a friend. It helps us get more conversations like this out to more people like you. We appreciate you, and we'll talk to you next time. And one more thing. If you're looking for a community of people all striving to be better together, check out the Project Indoor Hard Things Club. The link is in the description below. We'd love to have you.